Of the 161 plus Sega CD games released in the US, I've pulled out what I feel is worth owning or laughing at. And so here it is, the nuts and bolts for Sega CD games, and we'll just start right here. Sonic CD, definitely my pick for one of the best games for the system. Excellent all around. And real quick, a little bit about Sega CD cases. They're the same as the Sega Saturn and the same as the Sony PlayStation, early Sony PlayStation. And they're really fragile. It's a little tip is to if you find cheap sports titles with good cases, pick them up, because the cases alone they're fragile. They always break on the hinges. Again, a typical CD game also will have a nice foam piece, and that will protect the CD in the tray real quick. Next up is Eternal Champions, and the CD version had some extra overkills and some animations, a lot of fun. Road Rash had some funny full motion video intermissions on top of having Soundgarden as a soundtrack, and you know, it was a great game to begin with, and I like the Sega CD version. Dungeon Explorer, you know, this is excellent Turbo Grafx game, but there was also a Sega CD port, and you know, I like the game so much, any version of it's fun. Definitely check it out. Obviously, you can't talk about Sega CD without talking about Snatcher, and this is the famous sealed copy with the KB Toys sticker still on it, and a lot of fun. Great game, totally recommend it, and one of Konami's best made for the system. Well, you can't talk about Sega CD without mentioning the decent role-playing games, and Shining Force CD is one of the best versions of Shining Force for the 16-bit, and this one is definitely a must-have. It's pricey among all the RPGs, but totally recommend it. Working Designs did 4 games. I'm actually from Reading, so I have a soft spot for Working Designs games. But they you know, they started were you know, an early adopter of the Sega CD, and they made 4 conversions. And you have Vi, you have Popful Mail, Lunar 1 and 2, Silver Star. Interesting note, Jackie Powers is a friend of my wife's and myself, and she was the voice of Null, and she did some voice work for the Working Designs company, and I had her sign my copy. But anyway, she's a close friend of mine, and like I said, definitely worth noting. But excellent. The Lunar games, you know, obviously a lot of people remember playing them on the PlayStation, but it actually was on Sega CD before that. Next up, there's 2 strategy games that I definitely recommend for the series. Third World War is often overlooked, and you know, it's definitely kind of a lot of management style strategy game. A really deep strategy game, and I totally recommend it. Pretty complicated, but for people that like strategy games, well worth it. Now here's my favorite game on the system, hands down. If people ask me if there's one game that I like, and it is a very long strategy role-playing game, Dark Wizard. And again, this one is just great for many reasons. You pretty much are able to create monsters and human races, and over time they evolve and class up, and it is long. Like, it took me over 100 hours to beat. Hands down, excellent music, multiple endings, different character classes. Totally recommend it. Any strategy RPG fan out there, get that. Space Adventure, that is on the list because it's hard to get. It is very hard to get. Kind of an anime action story slash puzzle solver. So it's kind of hard to explain, but recommend it. It is hard. There's not a lot of games like it, and it is hard to get. 2 action side-scroller games that are pretty good. Spider-Man versus the Kingpin. Again, if you like Spider-Man on the Sega Genesis, this has got some additional stuff on it. I like it a lot, and it was a good conversion. Now, this is a game, a lot of times you think of a movie tie and you think of something that's just terrible. This is amazing. Terminator did this movie series justice. It is a side-scroller. It is very difficult, and a wonderful game. Like, definitely hands down one of the best movie conversions ever made. Now, the Sega CD first came out. It had some paper boxes, and some games were terrible and some were just crud. We'll start with the good ones. Final Fight had a very good and arcade accurate conversion, and it was uncensored, and that's the other nice thing about this version. Final Fight was an early Sega CD game, and good. Night Trap, obviously a kind of a funny kind of survival horror, not survival horror, but kind of pretty much rescuing sorority girls, and like I said, it's hokey, and today's standards pretty tame, but back then it was kind of controversial. Recommend it. Cobra Command, and this game is, I do believe, an arcade conversion, but it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Kind of animated, kind of like Dragon's Lair, but you're in a helicopter. Now the next 3 are in the list because they stink, and this definitely these are a series of make your own videos, and I recommend none of these to play. I recommend looking at them because they're that bad. There's one for NXS, make my own video, Crisscross, and Power Factory, yes, featuring CNC Music Factory. So all 3 of those are terrible in their own right. But for talking about the weird, that's definitely on the list. Speaking of the weird, the other 2 that are bad that I recommend because they're bad, Surgical Strike, and it's pretty much you're on like a hovercraft battle machine, and it's just, I mean, look at the artwork. Yeah, it's bad. And this one is equally as bad. Think of like a generic Power Rangers game, and you have the Masked Rider. And it is pretty much latex enemies and all the bad acting to go along with it. So I thought I'd end on some classics. And Heart of the Alien, Out of This World 1 and 2. An amazing series, and is done very well on the Sega CD. Excellent. If you like Flashback, you'll love this. So if you're a Flashback fan, get this. Shooters. There was several shooters on the system, and these are the 3 that I definitely say pick up. I'm going to start off with Android Assault. I do believe it's also known as Berry Arm, and it's a good side-scroller shooter, and often gets overlooked, and not a lot of people know about it. Android Assault is not going to set you back too bad, but it's definitely not $5 game, but good stuff. Again, another Turbo Grafx game that made it onto the Sega CD, Lords of Thunder, and really, if you like Lightning Force, you'll like Lords of Thunder. More power-ups, so awesome music, get it. And the holy grail of Sega CD games, Kyo Flying Squadron. combine humor with anime, and then actually make an amazing shooter, and that's what you got. And I got to show the back of this, because it's strap on your bunny ears and save the world. How awesome is that? But Kyo Flying Squadron, a really well colorful, which, you know, not many Sega CD games were very colorful. A very colorful shooter, and just done amazing. And this one will set you back. 150 bucks sometimes, depending on condition. I paid a lot for mine, and it was the last game I got for my set. So, some of the oddities, additional things to note about the Sega CD. I didn't talk about a lot about accessories because there wasn't a ton for the Sega CD. There's some I recommend. You RPG fans, you need this. It's the backup RAM cart. I have mine still sealed. Totally recommend getting this for your RPGs, because the Sega CD has limited space. Pick it up. The gun, again, I talked about the Genesis. This is the Sega CD gun, and this is the Justifier. And the Justifier is a blue gun, and mine's this is complete. That's a good picture of it, armed and dangerous. The other thing that's rare that you don't see a lot is the pink gun. So if you ever see a pink gun, definitely pick it up. It's much harder to get. And these work with the Lethal Enforcers games. There is another gun with American Laser games, but honestly, Lethal Enforcers is the game to play. You know, the other one, not a big deal with that one. And a couple other oddities. This is pretty hard to get, and many people don't have it. It's the Dragon Slayer demo CD, which was sent to showcase the game in retail stores. And I was lucky to score that off eBay years ago. And the other thing, it was, I do believe, a send-away. The Colors of Modern Rock. And again, it's just really bad music videos. And with, you know, very non-famous 90s musicians. So anyways, another oddity. It came in this weird like case with instruction manual inside. Totally recommend it. Well, that's the overview of Sega CD. I hope it helps you collect it, and thank you for looking at this.